viewers, and welcome to Montgomery Week in Review. The violence in Paris has inevitably led us to think about memories of 9/11 and the fears that 9/11 created. Brian Karem, the managing editor, or actually the executive editor of the Sentinel newspaper, is here to comment. The Civic Engagement Roundtable, sponsored by the League of Women Voters, continue on. Zaida Arguedas from the local league will explain what these are and what these roundtables hope to accomplish. The Asian community is rapidly becoming an important group of voters in our community. Lily Chi, past chair of the Governor's Commission on Asian American Affairs, is here to discuss what these citizens may be thinking about as the election comes closer. HOC, the Housing Opportunities Commission, has instituted an exciting new service for their clients, an online electronic list. Sally Roman, the chair of the board of directors of HOC, is here to tell us how this works. Brian, welcome.
Thank you, Don. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, but I think all of us, stunned by what happened in Paris, by what these terrorists are now threatening to do all over the place.
Well, terrorists always threaten. I mean, that's when they get you to change your lifestyle, then they've been successful in terrorizing you. So, we had a story today in Montgomery County Sentinel about some people that were in Paris at the time it occurred from Montgomery County. And of course, I addressed the issue. We have a cartoonist who addressed it this week, and I addressed it as well. There's a lot of fear. I got a lot of emails. People, all Muslims are terrorists, keep all Muslims out, only let Christians in to our country. And my response is, Timothy McVeigh was a Christian, so if you want to start banning Christians or banning everyone but Christians,
right,
you're going in the wrong direction. And the fear can overcome you. That's the thing, is at the end of the day, look, I run the last two newspapers of general interest in Montgomery and Prince George's County.
Right.
If somebody wants to take a shot at me, go for it. Vive la France is on the front of our newspaper this week. I'm not changing my lifestyle for anybody. You can't live in fear.
Well, let me ask you this. Is there a chance that this can come to Montgomery County?
There's always a chance. I mean, but for people who say it's inevitable, I just laugh. I mean, nothing's inevitable, the old saying is, except death and taxes. And you can put one of them off, not the other. Uncle Sam's going to come after you for taxes. But the bottom line is there's no inevitability to it. Could it happen here? Sure. Should it change the way you operate your life? We talk about it being like 9/11. It reminds me really more of the sniper incident that occurred when people were running around scared to death. I mean, I remember pumping gas at a gas station, and people were running zigzag patterns into the gas station because they heard that's the way to keep a sniper from hitting you.
Well, but remember, the sniper did kill people.
Well, sure, and terrorists do kill people. But what are you going to do?
Fear.
What are you going to do? Are you going to change your lifestyle for that?
Now, to discuss this with Brian Karem, let him know what's going on. There's a website.
www.thesentinel.com. And also want to remind everyone that on December 11th at the Bethesda Blues and Jazz Club in Bethesda, the Montgomery County Sentinel will be awarding its second annual Excellence in Government Awards to members of government in local and state and federal government who've done great for us across the land. We'll be feeding Brian Frosch and Sidney Katz, Beryl Feinberg, Governor Hogan, and a few others. Okay. So join us there on that day. And you can be a personal guest there, Don. 5:30 to 9. We're going to have fun.
Brian, I will be there. I just find it amazing that you found any excellence.
It was hard, but we did. But all right, back to terrorism. The biggest thing that people, I think, need to realize is that you can't. This isn't an issue that's about religion. This is an issue that's about power and money and manipulation. And when you give in to those who want to terrorize you, you're letting them win. And that's got to be said.
That's true.
What kinds of thoughts would you give? I mean, for Montgomery County Citizens, you've talked about how you just need to continue life as it is.
Well, first of all, open up your hearts a little bit. I mean, this whole thing about refugees and that terrorists are going to sneak in with the refugees. Look, we have open borders. You can wade across the Rio Grande. You can, and thousands do every day. You can drive in through Canada. If terrorists want to get here, there really is little to keep them from doing it. But what you're doing when you keep these refugees from being helped is you're helping to create more terrorists, because these are people that have nothing. And unless you've been in the Middle East and seen it firsthand, as I have, you cannot possibly fathom the depths of their depravity and among all else, the depths of poverty. It's shocking to me that anyone who calls themselves a Christian would sit there and say, don't let these people into the country because they're not Christian.
So what else are you going to be doing in terms of speaking to the Montgomery County community in your newspaper about these issues?
Today we had like I said, we had a editorial in the paper today. I fielded, we had approximately 1,000 emails in the last day alone. I can't possibly reach out to all of them, and quite honestly, some of them are not worth reaching out to. I'm not going to pick up a gun and shoot a refugee, which is what some are recommending. The very same people who always preach conspiracy and the fact that big media is manipulating your mind are being manipulated into thinking that these poor people are going to come and hurt us. And they just want food, water, and a place to sleep. And you know what? If they and that's one thing Governor Hogan, has not done right. And some of these governors who are defying the U.S. Constitution, in essence, by saying no refugees here. What happened to the Statue of Liberty? Give me you're tired, you're poor, you're huddled masses, yearning to breathe free, you're homeless, you're tempest-tossed. Yeah, screw you, go back. Is where it's at now.
We've got about 30 seconds left. What kinds of thoughts, in addition to what you just said right here, does Montgomery County need to do?
There's nothing you can do.
Well, that's the leadership. Tell us about Montgomery County's leaders. What do we need to do to make sure that
the leadership of Montgomery County is actually on top of this issue.
Yeah.
The leadership of the state is not. And the leadership of Montgomery needs to press upon the leadership of the state and the Republicans who are being very hypocritical that they should take care of people first. You want to get rid of terrorism? Make the world safe for McDonald's and Coca-Cola. When the average person in the Middle East is worried about soccer, getting their kids to soccer practice, and their mortgage, that's when it will end.
All right. Unfortunately, our session has to end here.
So I saw the timeout. Hurry.
Well, as we come here, then let's get on to community engagement, because this is a perfect area. I mean, I don't know, Zaida, welcome back.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about what the League is doing.
Well, we are at the end of the first year of the Civic Engagements Roundtable, which began in January of this year, with the sole goal to engage civic and political leaders to try to be more engaged with the community, get to know your leaders, and eventually, if you cannot vote now, vote in the future. But if we don't do that, I think we as immigrants, some of us, me, will continue to be outside of the system somewhat if we don't really learn what we need to do.
So is the objective primarily to get more people voting, more people engaged with their elected officials, more engaged in trying to promote issues that are important to them?
Well, I think it's like a continuum. Not everyone can vote, so you need to do other things. You can engage just learning about the Board of Education or something like that. And eventually, of course, the ultimate goal is to do what democracy is known for.
Before we go on, let me just throw this out to you. You've got a website so people can learn more about this even while we're talking about it.
Correct.
And what's that website?
The website is on the
screen right now.
On the screen right now.
Perfect.
I was just going to ask, how does it work? What are the specific programs? I mean, do you hold meetings and training, and how does
we
that
do
work?
hold meetings, and at the July meeting, 3 goals were identified as key to engage the communities. More voter registration in the diverse communities, not necessarily the mainstream community.
What is the numbers that are, because look, last election cycle in Rockville and Gaithersburg, you had 11% voter turnout, 15% voter turnout. People are sitting there preaching revolution when they won't get up off their fat butts to go cast a vote. So how do you get people voting, and what numbers?
The Civic Engagements Roundtable was created as a result of the low turnout last year. And it is an effort, not necessarily a promise that it will happen, to get more people engaged, getting them to know more about the history of Montgomery County, for heaven's sakes. But we live here, we need to know more about it. And so the first goal is more voter registration in the diverse communities.
How are you doing it?
We're going to temples, we're going to mosques, we're going to Buddhist temples, Catholic churches, wherever they want us, we will come because it's much easier for them to do it then. Secondly is we created a civic education course for speakers of other languages who have an advanced knowledge of conversational level. And that will be rolled out in January of next year. And thirdly, we're working on hosting or co-sponsoring candidate forums where we will bring those diverse communities to be engaged, or we co-sponsor some of those forums with other partners in the community.
Well, we'll partner with you in that.
Great.
Because that is one of the best things that you can do. And I know you'll speak to it, Lily, but the biggest problem I see in this county and across the country is people don't vote. That's one of the biggest problems I see every time there's an election cycle. And immigrants, a lot of people coming to this country, when I talk to them, some of them are scared to get involved. I mean, Hispanic community specifically, because you're so used to seeing the police.
Yeah, retribution.
That the idea of actually getting involved in the government is almost anathema to the way you exist.
I think it's more than being scared. I think they're shy. They don't really know the system. They are sometimes hesitant. Or the issues. They're hesitant to engage. And so that's what we're trying to see if over time, not over 1 year, but over time we can dispel those.
Who is we? Is it just League of Women Voters members of this, or a variety of civic groups?
A variety of civic groups, maybe 34 different civic groups, getting together with one, the most effective way to do voter registration is to, in the diverse community, is to be invited to come to their place and to have someone shepherding us through the system of their own community. And that's where we have had the most success.
We've got about just a little over 30 seconds left. What have you personally learned through the beginnings of this adventure? Have you learned any lessons that you were unaware of before?
Well, there is a misconception about Muslims, for instance, since we are on the theme of Muslims. We have been so welcome at the mosques. They're eager to welcome us. They're warm. They offer us lunch. I mean, it's just been an amazing experience, and I will always be a better person for that reason.
Excellent. And we're a better person. We're better people because you're here with us as well. So thank you, Zaida. We'll be right back after these messages.
Excellent.
And we're back. Wooly Chi, welcome back.
Nice to be back. Thank you, John.
As one of the leaders in this Asian community, which is the most diverse community in the world, I smiled. I think that with all of these different nations and significant groups of immigrants coming to our community, it's really difficult. I mean, puts you in a really strange position to Wooly Chi.
I try to represent them all.
But can you?
But there are certain. I mean, I guess you're here, and we're here to talk a little bit, again, looking ahead to the election. We touched on that in the last go-round. Are there some general thoughts that various components of the Asian community have right now as we enter into this 2016 election season?
Sure. Well, first of all, in Montgomery County, Asian Americans are now 15% of the total million people population, which is 150,000 people. That's huge. That's like a community all by ourselves, like a jurisdiction all by ourselves.
Right.
And of course, as you said, it's extremely diverse, almost impossibly diverse, with so many different languages and ethnicities. But we are lucky to have communities that really want to learn more about the American culture and want to get more connected with the local affairs and get more engaged. And so as these immigrants like myself who came here as students and younger now are getting older and are becoming empty nesters, we have more time to get engaged and pay more attention to the things that we did not have time to pay attention to when we were getting degrees and finding jobs and all that kind of thing. We're hustling. So what you're seeing is as individuals mature, communities are maturing. They pay more attention to civic and political engagement, not only in the forms of reaching out to register their own communities through Korean churches, Chinese language schools and what have you, and including some smaller communities. And also just encouraging the younger generation to think about running for offices. And we have several new state legislatures from Maryland that are of different Asian ethnic background.
Let me ask you this. Within most or many Asian communities and societies, age is very much respected. So
Traditionally, yes.
traditionally, why, for me, it'd be refreshing if it weren't just young people coming out. Why are we not getting older people coming out who have wisdom and
Well, they live in an
experience?
entirely different system. Most of us who grew up elsewhere did not grow up in a similar kind of democratic system, where one, your voices actually matter, and two, there is a very structured election system. And most of us did not have that kind of knowledge when we first came here. It takes some time to learn the system, and it takes some time to pay attention and learn the issues and what matters to you, what channels you can use to voice your opinions. So organizations are now paying attention. They organize candidate forums in addition to voter registration, so people actually would know who to vote for, that they can connect it with our issues. And one of the things I did in the past few years was to educate our communities the difference between registering to vote and registering for a party. Because if you don't register for a party, your vote counts far less than someone who does. Because in the primary, and primary oftentimes in Montgomery County, Maryland, is the election.
Right.
And if you don't have a voice, then your vote is
So
wasted.
what he was talking about as far as the older population, when I speak to members of that population of Asian Americans, it boils down to, I still don't buy into the American system. I'm not sure that it works for me.
Yeah, I think.
What do you do to deal with that?
And isn't some of that it's the younger people who tend to immigrate, and then older people come along to be near their children, but don't
But how do you
necessarily
deal
come
with
for other
getting
reasons.
older people involved in the system and getting them to believe it?
Well, part of it is the cultural and the language barriers. I think
Yeah.
they appreciate the American system, openness and fairness that they have personally benefited from, whether on the educational front or economic front. But they may have some profound differences of values with what Americans are, But for the most part, that is sort of a minority voice. I would say most immigrants are very much embracing American values, and they also become much more American in their way of life.
Well, they are Americans.
Yeah, they are, even if, but there is a cultural difference between having American passport and actually embracing all the values and wanting to be part of American culturally, But I think over
Do we have
time,
a culture?
over time, they do become more American and wanted to participate if we channel their energy and channel their thinking.
We've got about 20 seconds
Yeah.
left.
I think one
unfortunately.
of the most important things that you've said is the issue that there's totally misunderstanding when you check whether it's Democrat, Republican, or Independent. They don't understand it at all.
Well, so one of the last things I want to mention is that in the Asian community, we have a lot of Muslims. And now this hot button issue is about refugees and Muslim and all that. It's unfortunate that certain communities are being singled out. And what I want to say is the more we are engaging our communities of different religions, the more they feel a sense of belonging, the less likely people will feel isolation and resentment toward anyone.
Staying united in Montgomery County.
Yes.
Thank you, Lily. Appreciate it.
Ooh, you just made a slogan.
Sally, welcome back.
Thank you.
Let's talk about the HOC, Housing Opportunities Commission, a little bit here.
I think I'm here today because we've done something that we're finding very exciting. We've just made our waiting list an electronic online waiting list.
Wow.
And this has great benefits, I think, for both our applicants and for our staff, because the old waiting list was very unwieldy, took a lot of staff work, and as a result, we hadn't had it open to new applicants for over 6 years. So people had to wait as much as 6 years to even get on the list, much less get a housing unit. But this, it will be open all the time for everyone who has access to a
right.
computer. And
So-
we've spent a lot of time working
All
on
right,
it.
so it's electronic.
Yes.
We keep hearing on this show over and over again about how there's such a shortage of affordable housing.
Yes.
Your list, Is it a short list now that it's gone public? How long is this
well,
electronic
we
list now?
opened it for seniors and people with disabilities in July because we wanted to give them a little bit of a head start, since we thought maybe computers would be a little more challenging for them, and for everyone else in the end of August. And we have, as of yesterday, over 26,000 people on our waiting list.
Wow.
Wow.
We do not have 26,000 units available.
many
but
units
we
do
do
we
have-
have?
How many units?
We have about 13,000 units of our own.
That are
And
occupied
access to
now.
how many others?
Excuse me?
Do you have access to others?
Well, there are two main federal programs, and then
Right.
we have properties we own ourselves. The two main federal programs, one is public housing, which we're moving out of, and we're moving into other forms of assistance
Before
with
you get to the
same
second
units.
one,
Is
website.
vouchers.
No, your website. Well, people can.
Oh, okay.
Your website should be coming up about right now.
Okay, the website is www.hochousingpath.com.
Okay.
So one word. And anyway, with the voucher program, you can use with any landlord who will accept that voucher. So
You know,
that it's not
what's
just
hard
our-
to take, and maybe you can touch this issue, and I know it kind of touches on some of the things that we've ever talked about, but you ever go around this county and see the number of apartments that are empty, the housing that is empty, the homes that are empty, and there are people waiting on waiting lists who can't get in because of the way things are set up. Is there any frustration there
Oh,
in seeing
yeah,
how
in
many
fact-
empty homes there are and how many people need housing?
That's one reason why we've done this, is that as units become available, once your list gets more than about 2 or 3 years old, you have to call up so many people, because people move. The
Yeah,
average
the needs
renter
change.
only
Yeah.
stays about 3 years, so it's very hard to find people. It makes it very slow to lease, and we've just rehabbed 669 units that we were able to buy from HUD so that we could get the money to do it by mortgaging them, basically, to get the like home equity financing.
Right, right.
So we've just done that, but it takes a while to lease them up, and part of it is that when we have some of these units available, with the old list, it was so dated. You know, it would take a long time to find valid people. The other thing that was very difficult with the old paper list was it wasn't just one list, because each program has its own requirements. You know, based on federal rules, or in our case, we want to serve different populations too. So if a unit comes up in a senior property, you had a senior list and so forth and so on. Now there's just one list, and because it's all computerized, you will be able to sort it.
To
Staff
search
can
and
sort
sort
it,
everything.
so they can pick out people who are eligible for that
So will
property.
computerizing this list inevitably, or maybe not, make the access to housing easier for these people?
It should. It should make it easier. It's not going to create new units, obviously, but it should make it a lot easier and quicker to get people into the existing units, which would be a
Unless
real.
Anonymous hacks you.
We got a little bit over a minute left.
Yeah.
Are you confident that we're gaining on resolving the housing crisis in this county?
No, I don't. I
Not
think
yet, huh?
it's just never going to be fully satisfied. I think we
Why?
keep trying. We are, well, partly because for the private sector, and who can blame them? The big push lately has been high-end, upscale housing.
Sure.
Because obviously there's more money, and you can't blame people. They're in business to make a living. We're doing as much as we can, and we've been having some pretty good successes in partnering with other companies. For example, we had a garden apartment complex in Chevy Chase Lake,
Real quick.
and we've sold 2/3 of it to EYA, Eakin Young and Taub, who builds upscale townhouses, and then we're going to take the other third and build a new high-rise building, and there will be a lot more affordable units as a result.
Well, that is an optimistic end. So
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
I want to thank all of you for joining me today. It's been a great show. And I want to thank all of you in the viewing audience for joining us for this week's edition of Montgomery Week in Review. I'm Don Moores, and I invite you to join us next week at this very same time.